Kieranne.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing really good, thank you. Yeah, feeling a bit nervous, but yeah.
It's all part of the territory of anxiety. Most things we do, we can experience anxiety. It's really fun to have you on because I've watched your YouTube videos for a really long time, and I mean, I'm not a mother, so there's lots of things I can't relate to, but I find them really comforting to watch your videos, and it feels like, I don't know, like you're really, really good at what you do. And you make it a
Thank
very
you.
comforting place to be. And you talk about some really difficult topics like anxiety and OCD, and they're all topics I really relate to, which is probably why I found your videos. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to chat about them today. They're not always easy subjects to talk about, so I really appreciate you putting yourself out there and talking to me, a random Scottish girl who wants to talk about anxiety. So thank you so much.
No worries at all. Thank you for being so kind, honestly. Made my day.
Oh, I'm so
um,
glad. That's what I wanted to hear. But I was interested in, I've seen some of your videos talking about some things you were diagnosed with, some mental health problems you were diagnosed with after you had a baby. And I was wondering what your experience with mental health problems were before you had a baby, before you became pregnant. Did you experience things like anxiety then?
yes, I did. All the way through my teenage years, I suffered with anxiety, and that was quite difficult, quite challenging. But I think at the time, everyone sort of put it down to me just being a nervous person, and sort of that was just like, oh, that's just Kieran, that's who she is. So I didn't actually know I
Mm-hmm.
suffered with anxiety until later on in life. But looking back now, I can sort of realize now that it definitely was anxiety.
It's kind of nice looking back with hindsight and being able to be like, I don't know, it feels like you know yourself. Like we get to know ourselves more as adults and we're like, oh, I wish we could help that young child, which is kind of what we want to do on Anxiety Chats is like, um, hopefully someone will find this and they'll be in that same place and we can help that. Um, but I know that you
Yeah, definitely.
talked about OCD and you were diagnosed with OCD, perinatal OCD. Um, and I have OCD as well, so I found that really interesting that OCD can be diagnosed. I didn't know that you could have perinatal OCD. I'd heard of like postnatal depression, things like that, but not OCD. So, how was that for you? How did you get diagnosed, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, I had absolutely no idea it was a thing either. I was completely shocked when I was sort of diagnosed with it. I just thought it was sort of postnatal anxiety, just sort of like manifesting itself in a different way. But yeah, so I was under the perinatal mental health team anyway because I was suffering with postnatal depression, and we had a visit from one of the members of the team, and she came to the house, and I was sort of talking her through like an average week for me, and she said, Kieran, I think you have OCD. And that was just like a complete shock to me because I was like, how do I have OCD? Because I had a very um, naive view of OCD, I would say. Um, I sort of saw it as extreme cleaning, like the stereotypes that you have, having to color code
Mm-hmm.
things and, feeling uncomfortable about, I don't even know how to describe it, but like, I just had the very stereotyped view of OCD. I never thought it was what I was experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, um, so we sort of spoke about that, and she arranged a meeting with a consultant, and I met with him and I explained everything that was going on, and he said, "Yeah, I would definitely say it's OCD. We can get you medication, we can get you therapy." So we tried both. I did EMDR therapy for a while, which was really helpful, and again, I'd never heard that before. Um, so that was interesting. But actually, recently I found out that it's quite likely that I did or have suffered with OCD from quite a young age, but I never realised it was never picked up on. Um, but they reckon I probably have been suffering it since childhood. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster.
That is so. Oh God. So how was it that your OCD kind of manifested? Because some people might not know the difference between anxiety and OCD. Like, what was the difference for you?
So for me, from my point of view, it sort of started as anxiety, having lots of intrusive thoughts about horrible things happening to my daughter. And then I started having these compulsions with the intrusive thoughts. And it started as little things like I really need to clean all these bottles and make them like spotlessly clean because otherwise she'll get really ill. And then that turned from doing it a couple times, like washing it, or maybe it's not quite clean enough, wash it again, to spending an hour at the sink deep cleaning bottles. Um, and then it sort of turned into more extreme things like keeping her away from people. I wouldn't let her crawl around the flat where I lived because I believed that everything was contaminated, everything was dirty, and I would keep her contained in this warm blanket that I would wash every single day at the end of the day. I wouldn't let her sort of play with toys unless they'd been thoroughly sanitized. And then if something rolled onto the floor, that would be it. It couldn't be played with. I had to go and sanitize it again. And yeah, and it sort of snowballed from there and became quite sort of life altering. And it really sort of took over everything for me. Like it really took control of those first, like, well, that first year of motherhood, I would say.
Yeah, it's something that's, thank you so much for sharing that, because it's something that's really hard to describe sometimes. I'm like, for me anyway, like it's something that you can't really explain to people because you know that it doesn't make sense, but it makes completely sense to you.
Yeah.
And it just, yeah, it's just so unfair that we have to go through certain things like this, and you are doing really great at describing it. Like that's exactly what it's like, isn't it? Like just so terrifying, feeling scared of everything. And OCD really can take over your life. Like it can be so all encompassing. What's your OCD like now? Are you still are you able to manage a little bit better, or?
Yes, I think I'm definitely managing it a lot better these days. I sort of look back on that version of myself and I'm very happy from, where I've come from to where I am now, which is great. I'm on a medication that finally is working for me because I've been through quite a few different types. So that's fantastic. Um, and yeah, I think it manifests itself in different ways. So it's not, it still sort of is a big part of my life, but I'm managing a lot better than I was to begin with, I think.
I don't know if you've ever felt like this, but for me, like my OCD gets worse around when I'm anxious, like when something's coming up that makes me really anxious. And it's almost like, I don't know if you've ever felt like this, but it's almost like a friend. Like it's almost like something trying to protect me. And that might be absolutely not how you feel at all towards it. But like sometimes it feels like a bully, but sometimes it does feel like a friend. It feels like something that's like, I don't know, trying to support me, even though it's way too overprotective and it doesn't actually help.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Yeah. Yeah. My support woman who used to work with me from the perinatal mental health team, she described it as a really well-meaning thing that your brain does to try and keep you safe because your brain thinks that, imminent danger is everywhere and it's trying to protect me and it is trying to be good to me, but I need to not listen to it so much.
100%. Absolutely. It's like, yeah, it's like quite controlling. It's like a friend that can be very controlling and you don't always realise. Has there been anything you've found that helps in the moment with anxiety? Like when you're experiencing anxiety physically or mentally, like is there anything that for you really helps most of the time?
When I was going through EMDR therapy, the therapist taught me a few different techniques, and the one that really stuck with me was like butterfly tapping. And she would have me like cross my hands over my chest and do like little taps. And for some reason, I found that really calming, very grounding. So if I'm sort of feeling really anxious, quite overwhelmed, especially when I'm in the moment with the kids, because they can be quite full on sometimes, I just take a minute to myself and do little butterfly taps, and it just really like, I don't, it just sort of like grounds me again, makes me feel a bit calmer, and gives me a minute to just, zen out a bit.
Oh, I love that. What does EMDR therapy stand for?
I can't remember exactly what it stands for, which is awful. I should have done my research before I
Yeah.
came on here. Eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing.
Because I have actually thought about doing that therapy before. I'm in like regular chatting therapy just now, and it's nice, but like I think some kind of I've also seen people doing like energy tapping. Don't know if you've seen that before.
No, I haven't.
I think it's kind of similar, but they believe that there's loads of like electrons going through your body. I'm probably describing this so badly, but like there's certain points that can really help you calm down, and you say like certain affirmations or something to yourself while you do it. I don't know if there's anyone listening that actually does that for a job or something. Please don't take my word for that, because that's not probably how it is at all. um, yeah. The other question I had was I think about this quite a lot because I really want to have children one day, and yeah, I would just love that so much. And I was wondering if there was anything when you were feeling really anxious and you had your children with you, or in your home or whatever, is there any activities you do with your children that help you calm down? So they might think it's for them, but it's actually to try and help you calm down.
Yeah, blowing bubbles. Whenever I'm feeling stressed, I blow bubbles with them.
Ah, that's such a good one.
Absolutely love it. And it's like the slow breathing out, and yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good one. I'm going to keep that in my brain for if I have babies one day. Um, Another question I had was, you've been doing YouTube for quite a while, and yeah, I love watching your videos. And I was wondering if you were going to help anyone start a YouTube channel, if somebody really wanted to start a YouTube channel, but their anxiety was getting in the way, if you had any advice for them. I know it's probably something that is still sometimes anxious for you, but what would your pep talk be?
I think I would say, and this is always my go-to for myself as well, when I'm panicking about people sort of, seeing my videos, making fun of me, all that kind of stuff. I always just say to myself, we're literally on a rock floating around space. So, other people's opinions don't matter.
No, I love that. We have in Edinburgh, we have a really big old volcano called Arthur's Seat. And yesterday I was there and I was feeling quite anxious, and I saw somebody walking around the hill, and I noticed how tiny they were compared to the hill. And I was like, oh, that's how tiny I would look compared to the hill. Like, we're all actually really small. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, these things really don't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, that's a really good one. Last thing I was going to ask you is if you, I was wondering if you had a story you could tell us about a time you felt anxious.
Yeah, I have loads, loads of different stories. But I was thinking about sort of telling one from when I was in secondary school, when I wasn't necessarily diagnosed with anxiety, but definitely had anxiety disorder. But yeah, so I used to find staying in the classroom really, really difficult. I would feel like stressed out and hot and just panicked, and I'd think about all these awful things that could happen if I stayed in the classroom. And this became like a massive problem for me, all the way through like the probably final years of my education. And none of my teachers sort of understood it. Like they all sort of thought I was just trying to get out of lessons, which wasn't ideal, but was one of those things. So I remember one time I was stood in a lesson, or sat in a lesson, sorry, and the teacher was teaching a lesson. I put my hand up and said, "Can I go out, please?" And she was like, "No, you can't leave." And I was sat there like completely catastrophizing, thinking about all these awful things that were going to happen to me if I stayed in this classroom. And I was like getting really nervous, really like antsy. I was like fidgeting around, really like, working myself up. Um, and then the bell went and nothing happened. And I remember sitting there thinking, what? Like, like something should have happened, something awful should have happened. Um, and that was like a massive turning point for me, with sort of realizing that these anxious thoughts and feelings I was having weren't necessarily true. And that's when I sort of thought I need to get help for this because the world isn't as scary as I think it is. Um, and that's sort of like a point in my life that I always think back to whenever I'm in like a massive like stress or feeling really anxious or I'm having a bad day with the kids. And I always think like, you got through that lesson without having to leave. You can get through this. I know that sounds really silly, and like in the grand scheme of things, it's not a massive deal. But that was like a really like powerful moment in my life where I sort of proved my brain wrong. I didn't mean to. It was only because the teacher said I couldn't leave. But yeah, it's like it was really impactful for me.
Firstly, that teacher sounds like an idiot. And secondly, oh, that is the nicest story. Like, I think I'm going to take that story with me as well. Like, it's so true. Like, anxiety can become so physical and so like all consuming when you're having a panic attack or something like that. Like you said, you get hot, you get really sweaty, you feel sick. Like, there's so many physical symptoms that it's quite crazy how your brain can actually create these what feels like a medical issue. But like you said, it's actually, if you stay in the situation, it's actually never as bad as you think it's going to be. And like you sitting there being like, oh, but I was told by my brain that I was going to collapse or something bad was going to happen, and it not happening. It's just like, oh, thank you so much for sharing. Like, this has been so lovely.
No worries.
And also congratulations on having your third baby.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, little surprise baby.
It's so lovely. I'm so happy for you. Like, you're clearly an absolutely amazing mum, and so this will be another, I'm sure, very happy little baby. Oh,
Thank you so much.
thanks so much for chatting to us, Kieranne. If you want to go and check out Kieranne's videos, she does YouTube videos and TikTok videos, which are both absolutely amazing around motherhood and mental health. And they are so fun to watch and so lovely. So thank you so much, Kieranne, and we will see you soon, hopefully.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Anytime.
Bye.